The Great Hall of Zentara Prime buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different worlds gathered around the massive circular table. The emergency council meeting had been called with less than a day's notice, something that hadn't happened in over 200 years. Elder Korath's ancient form dominated the center of the room, his forearms gesturing slowly as he spoke to the assembled delegates. "You must listen to me," Korath said, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "The humans have discovered faster-than-light travel. They are expanding into the outer systems. This is not just another new species joining the galaxy. This is the beginning of something we cannot control." Counselor Zephin of the Krell Empire leaned back in his chair, his scaled face showing clear annoyance. "Elder, with respect, you speak as if these humans are some kind of unstoppable force. They are barely out of their home system. We have contained hundreds of species before them." The other council members nodded in agreement. Vexanine, the mechanical representative of the Nexary, clicked his metal fingers against the table. "Preliminary scans show they possess no superior technology. Their ships are crude, their weapons basic. What makes them different from any other emerging species?" Korath's oldest eyes, the ones that had seen the rise and fall of 3 galactic empires, fixed on each council member in turn, because my people met them before. Long ago, when they were still bound to their single world, we thought they were harmless then too. "That was thousands of years ago," Zephin interrupted. "Even if your people's records are accurate, these humans are not the same creatures your ancestors encountered." "They are exactly the same creatures," Korath replied firmly. "That is what makes them dangerous. Other species evolve, adapt, become something new when they reach the stars. Humans remain human, do not change to fit the galaxy. They change the galaxy to fit them." The council chamber fell silent except for the soft hum of the environmental systems. Several delegates exchanged glances, unsure how to respond to such a claim. Finally, Counselor Theseus of the Aquatic Domains spoke up. "Elder Korath, surely you cannot be serious. No single species has the power to reshape galactic civilization. The Federation has maintained order for over 5,000 years." Korath turned to face her, his expression grave. "The Federation has maintained order because every species we have encountered follows predictable patterns. They discover space travel, explore nearby systems, encounter our patrols, and accept their place in the established order. They may negotiate for better terms. They may even resist initially, but eventually they understand the wisdom of cooperation." "Humans will not," Vexanine asked, his mechanical voice carrying a note of skepticism. "Humans do not understand the concept of knowing their place," Korath said. "When they encounter a barrier, they do not go around it or accept it. They ask who built the barrier and whether that person had the right to build it. When they face a superior force, they do not surrender. They study it until they understand it, then they find a way to defeat it." Zephin laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "Elder, you make them sound like mythical beings. They are flesh and blood creatures who build ships and fight wars like any other species. If they refuse to accept reasonable limitations, we will impose those limitations by force." "That is exactly what my people thought," Korath said quietly. "We were the dominant power in our region of space when we first encountered their world. We had conquered dozens of systems, absorbed hundreds of species into our empire. We looked at this small blue planet with its primitive inhabitants and decided they might make useful servants." The other council members leaned forward, suddenly interested. Few knew the complete history of the ancient Vorthok Empire, and fewer still knew the real reason for its fall. "We sent a small fleet to their world, intending to demonstrate our superiority and establish our authority. The humans had barely achieved flight, let alone space travel. Should have been simple." Korath paused, his forehands clasping together. "Within a generation, our entire empire was in ruins. Impossible," Theseus breathed. "A pre-space flight. Civilization could not have destroyed an interstellar empire." "They did not destroy it directly," Korath explained. "They did something far more dangerous. They made our own subjects question why they obeyed us. The humans refused to kneel, refused to accept that we were their superiors simply because we had bigger ships and more advanced weapons. They asked our soldiers why they fought for us. They asked our servants why they served us. They asked our subjects why they paid us tribute. And, Zephyr prompted, though his mocking tone had faded. And our people realized they had no good answers, Korath said. Within 50 years, half our subjects had declared independence. Within a century, even our core worlds had abandoned the Empire. The humans never fired a shot at our capital, never invaded our home system. They simply existed, and their existence made our entire way of life impossible to maintain. The council chamber was completely silent now. The implications of Korath's story were sinking in. Several delegates looked uncomfortable. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Horizon, watching the stars streak past through the viewport. His ship was one of humanity's newest and finest, equipped with the latest developments in human faster-than-light technology. The crew of 43 represented the best and brightest of Earth's space program. Captain, we're receiving a signal, reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. It's coming from directly ahead, bearing 097 Mark IV. On screen, Morrison ordered. The main display flickered and showed the sleek form of an alien vessel. It's unlike anything in human databases. Its hull was a dark metallic color with strange geometric patterns etched across its surface. The ship was easily 3 times the size of the Horizon. "This is Captain Thane Vexcol of the Krell patrol vessel Dominion," came a translated voice over the communications system. "You are trespassing in Federation space. Identify yourselves and state your business." Morrison stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Horizon. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. We were not aware that this region of space was claimed by any government." There was a long pause before the alien captain responded. "You are humans, are you not? From the system your species calls Sol?" "That's correct," Morrison replied. "Then you should return to your designated systems immediately. The Galactic Federation has established clear boundaries for your species. Expansion. You are not authorized to travel beyond the 3 systems allocated to human settlement." Morrison frowned. "I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with any such agreement. Earth's government has not signed any treaties limiting our exploration rights." Another pause, longer this time. Morrison could sense that something important was happening on the alien ship, though he had no way of knowing what. On the bridge of the Dominion, Captain Vexcol was dealing with his own confusion. According to Federation records, all new species were supposed to be contacted and briefed on galactic law before they achieved significant space travel capabilities. The humans should have been aware of the restrictions placed on their expansion. "Captain," Morrison Vexcol said finally, "I will transmit the relevant Federation codes and regulations to your ship. You will find that your species has been granted settlement rights in 3 systems near your homeworld. Any expansion beyond those boundaries requires Federation approval." Morrison's frown deepened. "Captain Vexcol, I appreciate the information, but I have to ask, who gave the Federation the authority to limit human expansion? We never agreed to any such restrictions." The question hung in space between the 2 ships, and neither captain realized they had just taken the first step toward a conflict that would reshape the galaxy forever. 6 months had passed since Captain Morrison's encounter with the Krell patrol ship. The situation had grown more complicated than anyone in the Galactic Federation had expected. Counselor Zephyr stood before a large holographic display in his private command center, watching red dots appear across a 3-dimensional map of the local galaxy. Each red dot represented a human settlement that had appeared in supposedly restricted space. "How many now?" Zephyr asked his aide, a nervous young Krell named Voss. 17 confirmed colonies, sir. 3 more suspected sites that our scouts haven't been able to verify. Voss manipulated the controls, and the display zoomed in on one particular system. "This is the worst one. The humans call it New Haven." The display showed a planet that should have been empty according to Federation records. Instead, orbital platforms surrounded the world, and the surface showed clear signs of terraforming operations. Ships moved between the planet and its 3 moons, carrying supplies and equipment. "How many humans are down there?" Zephyr demanded. "Estimates suggest over 50,000, sir." "They've been there for at least 4 months, maybe longer. Zephin's clawed hands tightened into fists. 50,000. They didn't just send a small exploration team or a research station. They sent an entire colony fleet. Yes, sir.
And there?
Not just settling empty worlds. They're improving them. The humans on New Haven have increased the planet's atmospheric oxygen by 3% and are introducing Earth-compatible plant species across 2 continents. The counselor turned away from the display and walked to his desk. What about our containment protocols? Have they been implemented? That's where we're having difficulties, sir. Voss looked uncomfortable. Every time our patrol ships encounter human vessels, the humans ask questions. Questions? They want to know who authorized the containment zones. They ask to see copies of the treaties that established Federation authority over unoccupied systems. They request meetings with Federation representatives to discuss what they call mutual recognition of sovereign rights. Zephin stared at his aide. They're supposed to acknowledge our authority and return to their designated systems. That's how this works.
Yes, sir.
But they don't seem to understand that. The humans act as if they have the right to negotiate with us as equals. Before Zephin could respond, an alarm chimed softly. Another aide appeared on the communication screen, looking even more nervous than Voss. Counselor, we have a situation developing at Kepler 44. To be, Admiral. X Primes. Blockade fleet has encountered ... complications. The scene shifted to the Kepler 442 system, where a Federation blockade fleet of 12 ships hung in space around a small blue-green world. On the planet's surface, a human colony had been established 3 months earlier, led by a terraforming engineer named Lisa Chen and supported by Colonial Administrator Amy Rodriguez, Admiral Vex Prim, a veteran of dozens of successful containment operations, stood on his flagship's bridge reviewing the latest reports. The blockade should have been simple. Cut off the colony's supply lines, prevent any ships from landing or taking off, and wait for the humans to request evacuation back to their authorized systems. Instead, the situation had become increasingly strange. Sir reported his communications. Officer, we're receiving another transmission from the planet. Put it through, X-Prim said with a sigh. The main screen flickered to show a human woman with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. She wore practical work clothes and stood in what appeared to be some kind of agricultural facility. This is Amy Rodriguez, Colonial Administrator for New Haven Colony. Admiral Vexprim, I hope you're having a good day up there. Ms. Rodriguez, Vexprim replied formally. I have explained the situation multiple times. This system is not authorized for human settlement. You must evacuate immediately. Me smiled. Admiral, I understand your position, but I'm curious about something. Could you help me understand the legal basis for your blockade? The legal basis is Federation law. This system falls under Federation jurisdiction. I see. And when did the Federation acquire jurisdiction over this system? Was there a previous inhabitant that transferred authority to you? Vexprim paused. It was the same type of question the humans always asked, and he had never needed to answer it before. The Federation has maintained order in this region for thousands of years. That's very impressive, Amy said. But that doesn't really answer my question. You see, our records show this system was uninhabited when we arrived. The planet had no intelligent life, no signs of previous settlement, no infrastructure. I'm wondering how the Federation can claim jurisdiction over an empty world. Federation law establishes our authority over all systems within designated boundaries, Vex Prime said, though he was beginning to feel uncomfortable. Designated by whom? Amy asked. Admiral, I'm not trying to be difficult, but from our perspective, you're claiming ownership of a planet you've never visited, never improved, and never inhabited. In human law, that would be like me claiming to own your house because I drew a map that included it in my neighborhood. While Amy Rodriguez was having her polite but persistent conversation with the Admiral, other humans throughout the colony were taking more direct action. Lisa Chen had gathered a team of engineers and technicians in the colony's main workshop, where they were examining pieces of Federation technology that had been recovered from previous encounters. Look at this, said Dr. Ben Carter, a specialist in alien technology who had arrived on the last supply ship before the blockade began. He held up a small device that had been taken from a Federation probe. Their sensor arrays are incredibly advanced, but they have a major blind spot. What kind of blind spot? Lisa asked. These sensors are designed to detect known types of technology, Ben explained. They're looking for specific energy signatures, particular types of metal alloys, standard propulsion systems. But if you use something they're not programmed to, recognize ... they can't see it, Lisa finished. Exactly. And humans have a talent for improvisation that these Federation species don't seem to share. Over the next 2 weeks, that improvisation became apparent in ways that frustrated Admiral Vex Prime beyond measure. Small human craft began appearing and disappearing throughout the system, somehow avoiding detection by Federation sensors. Supply drops reached the colony despite the blockade. Most puzzling of all, the humans seemed to be thriving under the restrictions. Sir, reported the Admiral's tactical officer, the humans have established what appears to be a communications relay on the system's outer moon. How is that possible? We've been monitoring all traffic in and out of the system. Unknown, sir. But they're now in contact with at least 6 other human colonies. And they're sharing information about our patrol patterns and sensor capabilities. Vexprim felt a growing sense of unease. What kind of information? Technical data, sir. Details about our ship configurations, weapon systems, and surveillance methods. It appears they're treating our blockade as a learning opportunity. The final straw came when Amy Rodriguez requested another communication with the Admiral. Admiral. Vex Prime, she said, her tone as friendly as ever. I wanted to thank you for the extended observation period you've provided us. Observation period? Well, yes. Having your ship stationed around our system has given our technical teams a wonderful opportunity to study Federation technology. We've learned so much about your sensors, your communication systems, even your ship designs. It's been incredibly educational. Ms. Rodriguez, this is a blockade, not a research opportunity. I understand that's how you see it, Amy replied. But from our perspective, you've given us several weeks to study your capabilities while you've learned almost nothing about ours. We've identified the weaknesses in your sensor grid, developed countermeasures for your tracking systems, and established communication networks that your ships can't monitor. Vex Prime stared at the screen. Are you saying you've been using our blockade to gather intelligence? I'm saying we've been adapting to the situation you created, Amy said. Admiral, I have a proposal, rather than continuing this blockade, which isn't working and is becoming expensive for both sides. Why don't we arrange a meeting between Federation representatives and human negotiators? We're reasonable people. I'm sure we can work something out. After Amy ended the transmission, Vex Prime turned to his communications officer. Get me a priority channel to Counselor Zephin. Tell him the containment protocols have failed. Sir, the humans aren't just refusing to leave, Vex Prime said grimly. They're learning from us. I have the uncomfortable feeling that we're teaching them exactly what they need to know to defeat us. 3 days later, Counselor Zephin received a message that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. A human diplomatic vessel had arrived at the Federation capital, carrying an ambassador who requested a formal meeting with the Galactic Council. The message was simple: the United Earth Government requests equal representation in galactic affairs and the immediate cessation of unlawful interference with human expansion and settlement rights. Elder Koroth, when he heard the news, simply closed his ancient eyes and whispered, "It begins." Admiral Zixbrim commanded the largest Federation fleet assembled in over 3 centuries. 200 ships from 12 different worlds hung in formation around Proxima Station, humanity's primary military outpost in the outer systems. The Admiral's flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Eternal Order, dwarfed every human vessel in the system. This ends today, Zixprim announced to his bridge crew. No more games. No more negotiations. The humans will surrender their illegal colonies and return to their designated systems, or we will remove them by force. The fleet had been carefully planned. Every major human settlement was being targeted simultaneously by Federation forces. The operation was designed to be swift and overwhelming, giving the humans no time to coordinate their usual tricks and questions. At Proxima Station, Commander Kate Sullivan watched the approaching fleet through the observation deck of the main command center. Her defense force consisted of 37 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels with improvised weapons. By any reasonable calculation, the battle should last less than an hour. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Dan Foster, her communications officer, "the Federation fleet is broadcasting on all channels. They're demanding our immediate surrender." Kate turned to face her bridge crew. Every person there was a volunteer. When word had spread that the Federation was planning a major offensive, thousands of humans had requested permission to help defend the colonies. Many were civilians with no military training, but they had come anyway. "Open a channel to the Federation flagship," Kate ordered. Admiral Zix Prime's image appeared on the main screen. He was a tall, thin creature with pale blue skin and large, black eyes. His uniform was covered with medals and insignia of rank. "I am Admiral Zix Prime of the Federation Defense Fleet. You are in violation of galactic law and are commanded to surrender immediately. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force." Kate stepped forward. "Admiral, this is Commander Kate Sullivan. I appreciate you coming all this way, but I'm afraid we can't comply with your request." "This is not a request, Commander. It is an order backed by the full authority of the Galactic Federation." "I understand that's how you see it," Kate replied. "But we don't recognize the Federation's authority over human space. If you want us to leave, you'll have to make us leave." Zix Prime's expression hardened. "Very well. You have 5 minutes to evacuate non-combatants. After that, we will begin our attack." The transmission ended, and Kate turned to her crew. "You heard him. Let's show them what humans do when someone tries to push us around." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The Federation fleet attacked in perfect formation, using tactics that had succeeded against every other species they had ever encountered. They targeted the largest human ships first, expecting the smaller vessels to retreat once their main forces were destroyed. Instead, human ships scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed random, but somehow avoided most of the Federation weapons fire. Worse, they began targeting specific parts of Federation ships rather than trying to destroy them completely. "Sir," reported Zix Prime's tactical officer, "the humans are focusing their attacks on our sensor arrays and communication systems." "Impossible. Their weapons don't have the precision for surgical strikes." "Nevertheless, sir, 17 of our ships have lost primary sensors and we're having trouble coordinating fleet movements." The Admiral stared at his tactical display in growing confusion. Human ships were moving like nothing he had ever seen before. They used the gravity wells of nearby planets to slingshot around Federation vessels, attacked from unexpected angles, and seemed to anticipate Federation movements before they happened. "How are they doing this?" Zix Prime demanded. The answer was Dr. Ben Carter, who was working frantically in a converted laboratory aboard one of the human ships. Over the past months, he and his team had been analyzing every piece of Federation technology they could find. They had discovered something remarkable. Federation military doctrine was incredibly rigid. "Every Federation species fights the same way," Ben explained to Kate over the communication link. "They form up in standard patterns, attack in predictable sequences, and use the same tactical responses for every situation. It's like they're all reading from the same manual." "That helps us how?" Kate asked while dodging weapons fire from 3 Federation cruisers. "Because once you know the manual, you can predict what they're going to do next. I'm sending tactical data to all our ships now. Use it." Within minutes, the human fleet began moving with an efficiency that shocked the Federation forces. Human ships appeared exactly where Federation vessels were most vulnerable, struck at precisely the right moment, and disappeared before return fire could reach them. But the real surprise was yet to come. As the battle continued, human ships began broadcasting something that made the Federation crews stop and listen. It wasn't a weapon or a threat. It was a simple question, repeated over and over on all communication frequencies. "Why are you fighting us? What did we do to you?" The question was being asked by Angela Foster, human diplomat who had requested a meeting with the Galactic Council months earlier. She hadn't been aboard a warship during the battle. Instead, she had been broadcasting from a small civilian vessel that stayed well away from the fighting. "This is Angela Foster, representing the United Earth government," her voice said calmly. "To all Federation personnel participating in this attack, I want you to think about why you're here. We humans have never attacked Federation worlds. We've never threatened Federation citizens. We've never even demanded anything from your governments, except the right to be left alone." The broadcast continued as the battle raged around Proxima Station. "We're fighting today because we refuse to accept that you have the right to tell us where we can and cannot live. We're fighting because when we ask simple questions about your authority, you responded with weapons instead of answers." Ships throughout the fleet, crew members found themselves listening to Angela's words and thinking about them. Many had never considered why they were fighting. They had simply followed orders, as they had always done. "I know some of you are probably thinking that orders are orders," Angela continued. "But I want you to consider something. The Federation claims to represent peace and order in the galaxy. How does attacking people who have never harmed you serve peace? How does forcing us to live in areas you've chosen for us represent justice?" Admiral Zix Prime ordered his communications officer to jam the human broadcast, but it was too late. The message was already spreading through his fleet on dozens of different frequencies. Worse, some of his own crew members were beginning to ask questions. "Sir," reported his second-in-command, "we're receiving requests for clarification from several ship commanders. They want to know the specific legal justification for this attack." "The justification is Federation law," Zix Prime snapped. "Ah, yes. Sir, but they're asking which specific law the humans have violated. They want to see documentation." The Admiral realized with growing horror that he didn't have an answer. The Federation had always operated on the assumption that their authority was unquestionable. No one had ever asked to see the legal basis for that authority, because no one had ever thought to question it. Meanwhile, the battle around Proxima Station was going badly for the Federation fleet. Human ships had disabled or damaged over 60 Federation vessels, while losing only 8 of their own. The humans weren't trying to destroy the Federation ships. They were trying to capture them. "Sir," reported Kate Sullivan's tactical officer, "we've taken control of 3 Federation cruisers. The crews are requesting permission to speak with our diplomatic representatives." "Permission granted," Kate replied. "Patch them through to Angela Foster." As the battle continued, something unprecedented began to happen. Federation crew members on the captured ships started talking to their human captors. They asked questions about human society, human government, and human reasons for expansion. The humans answered honestly and completely. Within hours, word of these conversations was spreading through the Federation fleet. Crew members were learning that humans didn't want to conquer anyone or rule anyone. They just wanted to explore, settle new worlds, and live their lives without interference. By the end of the day, Admiral Zix Prime found himself in command of a fleet that was no longer entirely willing to fight. 3 ship commanders had refused direct orders to attack human vessels. 2 others had requested permission to return to base. Several crews had sent messages to their home governments asking for clarification about the war's objectives. The final blow came when Dr. Ben Carter's team accomplished something that shocked everyone involved. They didn't just capture Federation technology, they improved it. Human ships began appearing with weapons that were more accurate than Federation standards, shields that were more efficient, and engines that were faster. "How is this possible?" Zix Prime asked his intelligence officer. "Sir, our analysis suggests that humans don't just copy technology, they capture, they study it, understand it, and then find ways to make it better. Some of their improvements are actually superior to our original designs." That evening, as the Federation fleet regrouped at a safe DE, Captain Steve Mitchell had been exploring dead worlds for most of his adult life. But he had never seen anything like the ancient facility buried beneath the surface of Omega-7. His small exploration ship, the Wanderer, sat on the planet's gray surface while his team worked to unlock the massive metal doors that led deep underground. Captain called out Dr. Sarah Kim, his chief archaeologist. "You need to see this." Steve made his way down the metal ramp that his team had constructed to reach the facility's main entrance. The doors were covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when you weren't looking directly at them. More importantly, they were responding to human touch. "How is this possible?" Steve asked. "This facility is millions of years old, according to our scans." "I don't know," Sarah replied. "But whatever built this place, they designed it to be opened by species like us. The door scanners are reading human genetic patterns and allowing us access." Inside the facility, they found rooms filled with technology that was far beyond anything the Federation possessed. Weapons that could destroy entire solar systems, shields that could protect whole planets, and most disturbing of all, detailed records of every species in the galaxy. "Captain," whispered Tom Brady, the team's technology specialist. "These records show that the Federation isn't the first galactic government. There have been dozens of them over millions of years, and they all fell for the same reason." "What reason?" "They stopped growing. They stopped questioning. They became so focused on maintaining order that they forgot why order was important in the first place." Steve studied the ancient records with growing amazement. The facility had been built by a species called the predecessors, who had ruled the galaxy long before any current species had even developed intelligence. According to their records, they had watched dozens of galactic civilizations rise and fall, all following the same pattern. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to a section of the records. The predecessors were waiting for something. They were waiting for a species that would break the pattern. What kind of species? One that would ask why instead of how. One that would question authority instead of accepting it. One that would improve things instead of just using them. Steve felt a chill run down his spine. They were waiting for humans. The discovery of the predecessor facility changed everything. But Steve Mitchell did something that shocked both his own crew and the Federation forces that were monitoring his mission. Instead of keeping the advanced weapons for Earth's military, he immediately began sharing the defensive technologies with every species that wanted them. Captain Laura Hayes commanded one of humanity's fastest merchant ships, and she had spent the last 3 months traveling to worlds that most humans had never heard of. Her cargo hold was filled with devices based on predecessor technology, but she wasn't selling them. She was giving them away. "Why?" asked Vex 12, a representative of the mechanical Nexari species. "Why do you give us these gifts?" "Why do you want in return?" Laura smiled as she helped the Nexari engineers install the new shield generators on their space station. "We don't want anything in return. We're sharing these technologies because keeping them secret would be wrong." "Wrong?" "Think about it," Laura explained. "The Federation has kept dozens of species at primitive technological levels for thousands of years. They told you it was for your own good, for galactic stability. But really, they just wanted to make sure you could never challenge their authority." Vex 12's mechanical features whirred as he processed this information. "You were saying the Federation deliberately prevented our advancement?" "I'm saying the Federation never shared technologies that could have improved your lives, ended diseases on your worlds, or made your people safer. And when humans developed those same technologies, we decided that was wrong." Within weeks, Laura's actions were being repeated by human merchants throughout the galaxy. Species that had been struggling with energy shortages suddenly had access to fusion technology. Worlds suffering from environmental collapse received terraforming equipment. Civilizations that had been confined to single star systems were given faster-than-light engines. The Federation watched in horror as their carefully maintained balance of power crumbled. Counselor Zephin called emergency session after emergency session, but there was nothing they could do. The humans weren't conquering anyone or demanding tribute. They were simply sharing knowledge, and that was proving far more dangerous than any weapon. Dr. Carl Thompson represented everything the Federation had learned to fear about humans. He was a medical researcher who had spent years studying a plague that had devastated several Outer Rim worlds. The Federation's best scientists had declared the disease incurable, and the affected species had been quarantined for over a century. Carl solved the problem in 6 months. "It wasn't that difficult," he explained to the Aquatic Domain's chief medical officer. "The Federation scientists were trying to cure the symptoms instead of understanding the cause. Once you look at the disease as a biological system instead of just a medical problem, the solution becomes obvious. The cure didn't just work, It worked better than anyone had expected. The plague was completely eliminated from all affected worlds within a year. But more importantly, Carl's research led to breakthrough treatments for dozens of other diseases that had plagued various species for millennia. "How did your people learn to think this way?" asked Dr. Thisisnow, one of the Federation's most respected researchers. "We learned by asking questions that no one wanted us to ask," Carl replied. "The Federation told us that certain problems were unsolvable, that some limitations were permanent, that specific challenges were beyond current technology. We decided to find out if that was actually true." The medical breakthrough was followed by others. Human engineers solved energy crises that had existed for centuries. Human farmers developed techniques that could feed entire planets. Human teachers created educational systems that helped species learn faster and understand more. Each success made the same point. Problems that the Federation had declared impossible to solve weren't actually impossible. They had simply required someone willing to question the assumption that they couldn't be solved. Elder Korath watched these developments from his chambers on Zentara Prime with a mixture of dread and fascination. He had lived long enough to see the rise and fall of several galactic governments, but he had never seen anything like what the humans were doing. "They're not conquering the galaxy," he told his aide, a young Vorthok named Keston. "They're liberating it." "I don't understand, Elder." For thousands of years, the Federation has maintained power by convincing everyone that the current system is the best possible system. That technological advancement beyond certain limits is dangerous. Asking certain questions leads to chaos. That some species are naturally suited to rule, while others are naturally suited to obey. Korath gestured toward a display showing human activities throughout the galaxy. "The humans are proving that all of those assumptions are wrong. They're showing every species in the galaxy that they're capable of far more than the Federation ever allowed them to believe." The breaking point came when the Nexari, one of the Federation's most loyal member species, formally requested a revision of their membership status. They wanted equal representation in the Council, access to all Federation technologies, and the right to share their own discoveries with other species. "This is impossible," Councillor Zephin declared during the emergency session. "The Nexari have always been satisfied with their current status." "That was before we learned what our current status actually meant," replied Vex9, the Nexari representative. "The humans showed us records from the ancient archives. We discovered that our species developed faster than light travel 300 years before we were contacted by the Federation. Your people suppressed that knowledge and told us we needed Federation guidance to achieve what we had already achieved on our own. Similar revelations were emerging across the galaxy. Species were discovering that their histories had been altered, their achievements minimized, and their potential deliberately limited. The humans hadn't just shared technology, they had shared the truth. The final blow to Federation authority came from an unexpected source. The humans discovered that many of the Federation's own core worlds were suffering from problems that could be easily solved with technologies the Federation already possessed. Angela Foster, now serving as Earth's primary diplomatic representative, delivered the devastating news during a public broadcast that reached every inhabited world in the galaxy. "The Federation leadership has been telling everyone that certain technologies are too dangerous to share, that some problems are too complex to solve, that maintaining the current system is necessary for galactic peace," Angela said. "But we've discovered that the Federation's own citizens are dying from diseases that could be cured, living in poverty that could be eliminated, and struggling with limitations that could be removed." She paused to let that information sink in. "The Federation isn't protecting anyone from dangerous technology. They're protecting their own power by keeping everyone ignorant of what's possible." Within days, rebellion was spreading through Federation space. Not violent rebellion, but something far worse from the feed. The Federation's final plan was born from desperation. In a secret meeting held deep beneath the surface of Zentara Prime, remaining council members made a decision that would have been unthinkable just 2 years earlier. They would attack Earth itself. "If we destroy their home world, the human expansion will collapse," argued Councillor Zephin, his voice shaking with barely controlled fear. "Without Earth to coordinate their activities, The scattered human colonies will be vulnerable. And the other species who have joined them? Asked the Z's of the aquatic domains. Without human leadership, they will return to their previous allegiances. The rebellion will end. Only 3 council members remained in the emergency session. The others had either fled to their home worlds or been recalled by governments that no longer supported Federation policies. Elder Korath had not been invited to this meeting, but his warnings echoed in everyone's mind. The attack fleet that assembled in the void between star systems was the largest military force ever created in galactic history. Ships from the remaining loyal Federation worlds converged on coordinates that had been kept secret from all but the highest-ranking officers. The plan was simple: jump directly to Earth's solar system, destroy all human infrastructure, and eliminate the source of the Galactic Rebellion. Admiral Zixprime commanded the fleet from his flagship, though he had private doubts about the mission. His previous encounters with humans had taught him that they rarely reacted to situations the way other species did. What orders were orders, and the survival of the Federation depended on success. All ships report ready for jump, announced his navigation officer. Coordinates confirmed for the Sol system, added the tactical officer. Zixprime took a deep breath. Execute jump sequence. The massive fleet disappeared from normal space and reappeared near Earth's moon 3 minutes later. What they found there was not what they had expected. Earth's orbital defenses were impressive, but not overwhelming. The planet was protected by a network of space stations and defense platforms, but nothing that the Federation fleet couldn't handle. What shocked the Admiral was what wasn't there. "Sir," reported the sensor officer, "we're detecting minimal human fleet presence. Only about 30 ships in the immediate area. Where are the rest of their forces?" "Unknown, sir. We're receiving a transmission from the planet." The main screen showed a middle-aged human woman in a simple blue dress, standing in what appeared to be a garden. Behind her, the lights of a city twinkled in the distance. "This is President Karen White of the United Earth Government," she said calmly. "Admiral Zixprime, I assume you're here to destroy our world." "President White," the Admiral replied formally. "The Federation Council has authorized the use of necessary force to end human interference in galactic affairs. If you surrender immediately, civilian casualties can be minimized." Karen smiled. "Sadly, Admiral, I'm afraid you're about 2 years too late for that approach to work." "What do you mean?" "I mean that destroying Earth won't accomplish what you think it will. Would you like me to explain?" Despite himself, Zixprime found himself curious about the human leader's confidence. "Proceed." 2 years ago, you might have been right. Earth was the center of human civilization, the source of our technology and coordination. But something interesting happened when you started trying to contain us. We adapted. Karen gestured toward the stars beyond Earth's atmosphere. Human colonies are now established in over 300 systems. Each one is self-sufficient. Each one has its own government, its own military, its own research facilities. We're not an empire with a capital that can be destroyed. We're a network of independent communities that share common values. "You're bluffing," Zixprime said, though he was beginning to feel uncertain. "Am I? Let me introduce you to some people." The screen split to show multiple images. Tony Garcia appeared from a mining colony in the Vega system. Susan Clark spoke from a research station orbiting a distant pulsar. Jake Morrison, now an admiral himself, transmitted from a fleet base in the Outer Rim. Admiral Jake said, "President, White is telling the truth. Human civilization doesn't depend on Earth anymore. We've learned from studying galactic history. Every previous civilization fell because they centralized too much power in one place. We decided not to make that mistake." More importantly, added Susan Clark, "we're not alone anymore. The Free Worlds Alliance includes over 200 species now. Even if you destroyed every human world in the galaxy, the ideas we've shared would continue spreading." Zixprime stared at the screen in growing horror. "You're saying that attacking Earth is meaningless?" "I'm saying that attacking Earth would make you exactly the kind of monsters you've been claiming we are," Karen replied. "But more than that. It would prove to every species in the galaxy that the Federation's only answer to questions they can't answer is violence." As if to emphasize her point, new contacts began appearing on the Federation fleet's sensors. Ships from dozens of different species were emerging from hyperspace around Earth's solar system. Not to attack the Federation fleet, but to protect Earth. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "we're being surrounded. Nexari ships to port, aquatic domain vessels to starboard, and, sir, those are Krell ships approaching from the rear." "Ships? That's impossible. The Krell are loyal Federation members." "It's not anymore," came a new voice over the communication channel. Captain Thane Vexkel, the same Krell officer who had first encountered Jake Morrison 2 years earlier, appeared. On screen, "Admiral, the Krell, High Command, has withdrawn from the Federation. We're here to ensure that Earth receives the same protection we would want for our own home world." Admiral Zix Prime found himself commanding a massive fleet that was outnumbered. Surrounded and facing opponents who knew all of his tactical capabilities. Worse, his own crew was beginning to question their orders. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving private messages from several ship commanders. They're asking whether we really intend to attack a civilian population." Center. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Elder Korth's image appeared on every screen in the Federation fleet, speaking directly to the crews. "Warriors of the Federation," the ancient Vorthok said, "I am Elder Koroth, and I speak to you as one who has lived through the rise and fall of 3 galactic governments. What you are being asked to do today will be remembered for thousands of years. The question is, how do you want it to be remembered?" Koroth paused, letting his words sink in. "The humans have never attacked a Federation world. They have never threatened Federation civilians. They have never demanded that anyone abandon their own cultures or governments. All they have done is ask questions, share knowledge, and refuse to accept that the current system cannot be improved. If you attack Earth today, you will be destroying the home world of a species whose only crime was believing that everyone deserves the chance to grow and learn and become better than they are. Is that really what you joined the Federation military to do?" The effect was immediate and devastating. Ships throughout the Federation fleet began powering down their weapons. Several vessel commanders requested permission to return to base. Others simply jumped back to hyperspace without orders. Within an hour, Admiral Zix Prime found himself commanding a fleet that was no longer willing to fight. The great offensive to destroy human civilization had collapsed not because of superior firepower, but because the attackers couldn't find a moral justification for what they were being asked to do. "Admiral," came a gentle voice over the communication system. It was Angela Foster, now serving as Earth's Secretary of State. "Would you like to come down to the planet? I think it's time we had a real conversation about what comes next." 3 months later, Elder Koroth sat in the same garden where President Karen White had spoken to the Federation fleet. The old Vorthok was ancient, even by his species standards. But his mind remained sharp as he discussed the future with Earth's leadership. "The Federation still exists," Karen said, pouring tea for both of them. "But it's not the same organization it was before." No, Koroth agreed. "It has become what it should have been from the beginning. A forum for cooperation rather than a tool for control and the Free Worlds Alliance. Growing every day. Species that were held back for centuries are finally free to discover what they're truly capable of. Some will surpass even human achievements within a generation." Karen smiled. "That's exactly what we hoped would happen." Koroth studied the human leader with his ancient eyes. "Your people have done something remarkable. You've created a galactic civilization based on freedom rather than fear. But I must ask, what happens when humanity faces a challenge that cannot be solved by asking questions and sharing knowledge? Then we'll adapt," Karen replied simply. "That's what humans do. We find a way." The old Vorthok nodded slowly. "Yes, I suppose you will. It's what makes you so dangerous and so necessary." As the sun set over Earth's capital city, Koroth reflected on the conversation he had tried to have with the Federation Council 2 years earlier. He had warned them about humans, but perhaps he should have warned humans about themselves. Had the power to change everything they touched. And with that power came responsibilities that they were only beginning to understand. But as he watched,